The whole situation, in my opinion, is an indicative irony of a bigger problem that's been going on since. I mean, you could either say 1999 or 1973. Pick your poison. And I think it's ironic that it happened with someone who's so beloved in New York and who's so revered in New York and who's so sort of representative of the good old days of New York basketball. And when I say the good old days of New York basketball, I'm not even talking about the Willis Reed, Clyde Frazier, Dave DeBusschere days anymore. I'm talking about the old Knicks, because the Clyde, Willis Knicks, in my opinion now, are the older Knicks. We're that far away since the last time we were really competitive.
Okay, with that in mind, let's start with who Charles Oakley is. I've heard him described as a legendary Knick, and I don't like. Look, dude, my dad was a Knicks fan. He's not a legendary Knick. He's a fan favorite, right? He was the tough guy fan favorite. Like, legendary Knick is Patrick Ewing. Legendary Knick is Willis Reed, Dave DeBusschere. We can, you went through some of the names. He was a fan favorite tough guy, not legendary Knick.
No, first of all, he wasn't a tough guy. He wasn't just a tough guy. The year that the Knicks made the finals, 1999,
yeah,
and lost by the skin of their John Starks three-point shooting teeth, Charles Oakley was first-team all-defense, first-team, and an all-star. Charles Oakley wasn't just an enforcer. He was a great rebounder. He was a knockdown shooter from 10 to 12 feet. And he's a guy that every team, whether it's 2016 Draymond Green, whether it's the Big Three, Udonis Haslem, whether it's the Kobe Shaq Lakers with Rick Fox, or it's Charles Oakley and the Knicks and Rick Mahorn and the Bad Boys, every team needs a guy who is there in case things go wrong, who's there to sort of set the tone of things. But Charles Oakley wasn't just that. Charles Oakley almost had a career average of a double-double. And the thing about Oakley in New York City, why he's so revered, is because he represents the grit, the hard-nosed toughness that is the essence of New York. Not what you see on Sex and the City and hipster, gentrified Brooklyn with the show Girls. I'm talking about the majority of people that are in New York and that are from New York are hardworking, 9 to 5, ham and egger, middle-class people that are just trying to make a living, trying to, take care of their families. What we see the majority of New York City now is Soho. Charles Oakley ain't Soho. Charles Oakley is Harlem, Staten Island, Long Island, the outer parts of Queens, and so forth. They had
a team of those guys.
He's not Celebrity Row.
I understand, and that's why that team was revered, right? Like, Greg Anthony wasn't great, but he was a tough guy. Larry Johnson kind of embodied that. Anthony Mason embodied that. John Starks, frankly, embodied that. Like, you had a team full of those guys, and I think now he was a damn good player. We should point out the Bulls got better when they traded him for Medical Bill Cartwright, right? Like, that was a trade. Jordan loved him. Jordan, went to the mattresses over it. But, like, let's not act like he was a one-time All-Star. He never led the league in rebounding. He was a really good, solid power forward.
That's right, but I'm not talking about statistics. I'm talking about you're talking about why he's so revered. Why before this incident, if they had said, from the 1994-1999 Knicks, Charles Oakley, while the Garden would stand up for him. He didn't need anybody else because I'm not talking. I'm talking about an emotional connection.
All right, so help me out with this. Help me out with this. What happened? Like, we're going to hear Dolan's going on with Michael K.
I don't know what happened.
But you know people, and I don't buy. I frankly, I'm like, listen, I liked Oakley as well. I don't buy for 1 second. Like, he just sat down and they came and told me he had to leave. Like, I don't buy that. Now, does that mean that he was cursing and slurring his words and trying to fight people? I don't. But you have to have a pretty good sense from talking to people over what most people think happened. What do you think happened?
I think what happened was he got tickets, whether he got them, a friend got him, near Dolan. I'll bet you Dolan, noticed he was around, and then the security was looking at Oakley, and I think it was sort of a kind of thing where Oakley was this is what I guess. This is what I imagine happened. Okay. And Oakley was probably like, yo, what the hell are these dudes looking at? And then, and he said, why y'all looking at me? Probably something like that. And then they said, take it easy, Charles. I'm not taking it easy, Charles. And then they probably came over to him. And then when they came over to him, probably what happened you saw on TV. That's what I imagine and I think happened. I think it was probably, they probably were a little bit on guard because, Oakley can be a little reckless. And then it escalated. And it was an ugly situation. They just fired the head of security at the Garden.
Yeah.
I don't know why. I don't, from everything I see about his resume, this guy worked with Bush and Obama. And listen, the bottom line is, where are you from?
I'm from Southern California. My dad was in New York.
California. See, you're not going to understand why the tri-state area, why Knicks fans are going to, before this incident and now.
Hold on. Saying I'm from, my dad was a New Yorker, lifelong Knicks fan, lifelong basketball fan. Hold on. We used to come back every summer. Like, I get it. I know why you hate Dolan. I understand.
I don't hate Dolan. I don't think anybody hates Dolan. We're frustrated with the Knicks. And if you got to start from the top. So I don't hate Dolan at all. I'm just frustrated with losing, because despite what anyone wants to say, Madison Square Garden is and always will be the world's most famous arena. New York City will and always still and always will be the mecca of basketball, despite if the Knicks are winning or not. So what you're hearing from me and what you're hearing from Knicks fans is just the frustration. And we're pointing fingers because there's a civil war amongst the fans right now. We're just pointing at everybody. We don't care who fixes it, but somebody needs to fix it. And Dolan's the obvious choice to point at, and then you could start with Phil and the Carmelo and go back to the Isaiah and all this. We just want to be competitive. And we want a team that represents New York City. Because the teams that represented New York City, going back to the Dave DeBusschere, Willis Reed, those tough, eclectic, racially diverse teams, and then the 90s Knicks that were lunch pail, garbage pail, tough truck drivers, they represented the fabric of New York City. The Knicks teams that have been successful, we've had a connection with them. LA basketball, same thing. You got the stars, you got Kobe, you got Magic. Like there has to be a connection with this, and you can't plan that. And I don't have a solution, and I don't know if it's ever going to come back. But right now, you're hearing the frustration from me, and I think probably the majority of Knicks fans. It's just that we're finger pointing.
I agree. I would also say though that Michael Rapaport joining us in the Doug Gottlieb Show on CBS Sports Radio. I would agree. What is the solution, right? I mean, they did bottom out a couple years ago. They sat Melo down. He had the knee surgery. They got Kristaps Porzingis, who appears to be a guy that you feel like you can build around. And now the question becomes, do you jettison Melo, right? And what can you possibly get back in return, considering he can pick and choose if he wants to opt out, if he wants to waive his no trade clause. He makes a lot of money. He is on not the tail end, but he's not at the peak of his career. He's on the downside of his career. What do you do with Carmelo Anthony?
Well, I'm not sure, but I just want to remind the audience, your listeners, because you're playing devil's advocate and you're real calm, cool, collected right now, and your fans are probably like Michael Rapaport's going nuts. Doug Gottlieb, my man, Doug Gottlieb. Just remind the people, Doug, when you played in the Celebrity All-Star Game, we're talking to a guy. He's cool, calm, and collected right now. He was picking up guys in a Celebrity All-Star Game, full court press.
I was not picking up guys full court press. It was the end of the quarter. I didn't know if I was going to come back in, and I wanted to take the ball from Neo so I get a lay. I was still feeling good. I was thinking about getting a dunk, and I picked Neo's pocket. I did it one time, and you just and then you just happened to be railing on me because I had 17 at the half because you thought I was trying to get a 10-day.
That's totally true. You were trying to get a 10-day. So I like how you're playing devil's advocate. But I just want to remind the listeners, we're talking about a guy in a Celebrity All-Star Game. He was picking up supermodels. I mean, I saw him lay out I can't remember who it was, with a pick, a back screen, or some WNBA player. So, Doug, you could be all cool, calm, and collective today, but I know there's a competitive streak in you.
Listen,
and you're a crazy lunatic. And I think didn't they ban you from the celebrity game going forward? I think you might have been banned.
It's very possible. That's why I had to leave that company. No, look, dude, I feel it. I get it. Again, I don't know. Outside of trading, people are acting like Carmelo is a guy that Phil Jackson's a bad guy for saying that Carmelo is a ball hog and doesn't play great defense. Like, that's who he is.
I agree. Listen, well, what is your opinion? Because, I mean, my opinion is this. I think that Phil, the tweeting and putting your number one player on blast, totally inappropriate. I think that Phil, obviously the Doug Fisher experiment the Derek Fisher experiment was a mess.
Yep.
And I'm not sure, man. I don't know what to do. I don't know what to do at this point. I wish that Carmelo and Phil could get on the same page, because I feel like Carmelo, he's not getting traded during this season. He's not going to Cleveland. That would be too much of a risk for Cleveland. To get him in there, it might work out, it might not.
Right.
But
whereas you know what you have right now if you don't make a move. Even if the ceiling isn't as high, you at least know what you have. Whereas with Melo, that could screw the thing up for a good portion of time before it evens out.
Yeah, totally. So I don't know what the solution is, man. If I had the solution, Doug, you think I'd be spending time talking to you on your radio show? I'd be somewhere counting money, printing money, my man.
No, but if you had the solution to the Knicks, okay. So let's just start in the immediate, because we got to go in a second. How can you fix the Dolan thing? How can you fix because now if you welcome back in Charles Oakley, now you're just kissing his ass, right? But so how do you fix that because they play at home tonight, they're going to do free. There's going to be a free Oakley chance. This is a PR disaster for the Knicks.
I think what needs to happen, to answer your question, I think that there needs to be accessibility to Phil. People want to hear from Phil. Phil has to start speaking. I know Dolan's going to be on the radio later today. No one cares from Dolan. We don't relate to Dolan. He's not Mark Cuban. And he shouldn't be. He's the owner of the team. It's not like you plan these things. I think there has to be an accessibility and an accountability and an acknowledgement of the frustration. And that's what I think needs to happen. In a nutshell, I think that everybody has to say, we need to fix this and we need to put our egos aside right now for the betterment of this franchise right now. And collectively, the players have to start playing hard. Phil needs to stop tweeting. And we're going to have to ride or die this season out with who we have, which is not a bad team. The Derrick Rose going missing incident, that got swept under the rug. That was a tragedy. That was crazy.
Do you know what? But again, how does that happen? Only the Knicks can have a former.
Doug, I don't know how this happened. This is crazy. I don't know how that happens. I don't know if people are drinking tap water in the city. My father, he drinks tap water. He's 83, but he's been drinking New York City tap water for 83 years. I don't know what the hell's going on in New York, but it's frustrating and it's embarrassing that a guy getting paid $25 million doesn't show up for a game, doesn't get fined, and there's no accountability. I don't know.